The rain started exactly when Fiona Anderson's life fell apart, which felt almost too poetic to be real. She stood outside the gallery where she had just been fired, her portfolio clutched against her chest like a shield that had failed to protect her. The art director had been blunt. "Your work is technically perfect, Fiona, but it lacks passion. We need artists who bleed onto the canvas, not ones who follow formulas." 27 years old, and apparently she had been playing it safe her entire career. The downpour intensified, and Fiona ducked into the nearest shelter, which happened to be an upscale hotel lobby. She had never been inside the Meridian before. Crystal chandeliers hung from ceilings so high they seemed to touch the clouds, and the marble floors reflected her soaked sneakers and paint-stained jeans like a mirror judging her life choices. "Miss, can I help you?" A concierge approached with concern etched across his professional features. "I'm just waiting for the rain to stop," Fiona said, her voice smaller than she intended. He nodded sympathetically and gestured toward the bar. "You might be more comfortable there. First drink is on the house for anyone caught in this weather." Fiona hesitated, then figured why not. Her day could not possibly get worse. The bar was all dark wood and ambient lighting, with soft jazz playing from invisible speakers. She slid onto a leather stool and ordered a glass of wine, something she never did on a Tuesday afternoon, but this was not a normal Tuesday. "Make that two," a voice said beside her, deep and warm. "She looks like she needs the good bottle, not whatever house wine you were reaching for." Fiona turned to find a man settling onto the stool next to hers. He was tall, probably in his early 30s, with dark hair that was slightly disheveled and eyes so intensely blue they reminded her of the ocean paintings she used to create before she started second-guessing every brushstroke. He wore an expensive suit, but his tie was loosened, and there was something tired yet kind in his expression. "I can buy my own wine," Fiona said, but without much conviction. "I'm sure you can," he replied, and there was no condescension in his tone, just simple acknowledgement. "But today seems like a day when someone should buy it for you. I'm Zachary Zimmerman." "Fiona Anderson." She accepted the glass the bartender poured from a bottle she definitely could not have afforded. "And yes, it has been that kind of day. Want to talk about it?" Zachary asked, swirling his own wine but not drinking yet, his full attention on her. Something about him felt safe, maybe because he was a stranger she would never see again. "I got fired from my job at an art gallery. Well, I was an artist they represented. They said my work was too safe, too technical. Apparently I need to feel more." "Do you agree with them?" The question caught her off guard. Most people would have immediately reassured her that she was talented, that they were wrong. "I don't know," Fiona admitted. "Maybe. I have been painting what I think people want to see for so long that I forgot what I actually want to create." Zachary nodded slowly. "I understand that more than you might think. Sometimes we build entire lives around what we think we should be doing instead of what sets our souls on fire." "That sounds like the voice of experience." "It is." He finally took a sip of his wine, and Fiona noticed his hands, strong with a thin white scar across his knuckles, working hands despite the expensive suit. "I run a construction company, Zimmerman Developments. We build skyscrapers, hotels, entire city blocks. I inherited it from my father 5 years ago when he passed." "You don't sound happy about it." "I'm good at it," Zachary said carefully. "But when I was younger, I wanted to be an architect. I wanted to design buildings, not just construct them. My father needed me in the family business, and I convinced myself that was enough." He looked at her then, really looked at her, and Fiona felt something shift in the air between them. Maybe we're both too good at convincing ourselves. The bartender refilled their glasses without being asked. Outside, the rain continued its relentless assault on the city, but inside this small bubble of leather and low lighting, Fiona felt warmer than she had in months. "Tell me about the art you want to create," Zachary said, leaning closer. "Not what you think will sell. What calls to you when you close your eyes?" No one had ever asked her that before. Fiona took a long drink, letting the wine give her courage. "Abstract landscapes. Emotions painted through colors and textures instead of recognizable forms. I want to capture what it feels like to stand at the edge of the ocean at dawn, or the moment right before a storm breaks, or the sensation of falling in love. She stopped, embarrassed. That probably sounds ridiculous. It sounds incredible, Zachary said, and he meant it. She could see the sincerity in his eyes. I would hang that in every building I create. They talked for another hour, then two. Zachary told her about the pressure of running a billion-dollar company at 32, how every decision affected thousands of employees and their families. Fiona shared her fear of never being good enough, of playing it safe until she disappeared into mediocrity. He ordered food without consulting her, somehow knowing she had not eaten all day, and she found herself grateful rather than annoyed. "This is going to sound crazy," Zachary said as they finished their second bottle of wine. The rain had finally stopped, but neither of them had moved to leave. "But I have a suite upstairs. My apartment is being renovated, so I have been living here for the past month. I have this massive balcony with a view of the entire city, and right now, with the storm clearing, it will be stunning. Come see it with me." Fiona knew she should say no. She had just met this man. But something in his eyes promised safety, promised that this night could be the start of something that mattered. "Okay," she heard herself say, "but just to see the view." Zachary's smile transformed his entire face. Just the view. The elevator ride to the top floor was silent but not uncomfortable. Fiona was hyper-aware of Zachary standing close enough that she could smell his cologne, something woodsy and clean. Her heart hammered against her ribs, not from fear but from anticipation of something she could not quite name. The suite was not just a room. It was an apartment in the sky, with floor-to-ceiling windows and modern furniture that somehow managed to look inviting rather than sterile. But Zachary was right about the balcony. He opened the French doors and they stepped out into the cool evening air. The city sprawled before them, lights beginning to twinkle as dusk settled over the wet streets. The storm clouds were breaking apart, revealing patches of deep purple sky. It was breathtaking. "This is what I wanted to design," Zachary said softly, standing beside her at the railing. "Spaces where people could feel this, where beauty and function meet emotion. It's not too late," Fiona said, turning to look at him. "You could still do it. Maybe." He met her gaze, and the intensity there made her breath catch. "Meeting you tonight feels like a sign. Like maybe I have been sleepwalking through my life and suddenly woke up." "I feel the same way," Fiona whispered. "Like this day had to break me so I could be here right now with you." Zachary reached out slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, and tucked a strand of her still damp hair behind her ear. "I know this is fast. I know we just met. But I feel something with you that I have never felt with anyone else, like I have been waiting for you without knowing it." "I feel it too," Fiona said, and then his lips were on hers, gentle at first, questioning. She answered by pressing closer, and the kiss deepened into something that felt like coming home and jumping off a cliff at the same time. They moved inside without breaking apart, a tangle of hands and hearts that had been lonely for too long. Zachary kept asking if she was sure, kept giving her opportunities to stop, but Fiona had never been more certain of anything. This was not about the wine or the emotional day. This was about two people recognizing something true in each other. Later, wrapped in soft sheets with the city lights painting patterns on the ceiling, Fiona rested her head on Zachary's chest and listened to his heartbeat. "Stay the night," he murmured, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her shoulder. "I want to wake up with you here." "Okay," she agreed, because leaving felt impossible. She woke to sunlight streaming through those enormous windows and the smell of coffee. Zachary was sitting on the edge of the bed, already dressed in a fresh suit, holding two mugs. "I have meetings all day," he said, handing her one. "But I want to see you tonight, and tomorrow night, and every night after that if you will let me." Fiona sat up, suddenly aware that she was wearing his shirt and probably looked like a mess. "Zachary, last night was amazing, but we live in different worlds. You're a billionaire who lives in hotel suites and drinks expensive wine. I just got fired and can barely afford my rent. So move in here, he said simply. I'm serious, Fiona, I know it is fast, but I'm 32 years old. I have dated enough to know when something is real. This is real. You're crazy, she said, but she was smiling. Probably. He leaned in and kissed her softly. But say you will see me again. Say this was not just one night. It was not just one night, Fiona promised, and she meant it with every fiber of her being. The next 3 months were a whirlwind. Zachary was true to his word, seeing her every moment his demanding schedule allowed. He showed up at her tiny studio apartment with takeout and sat on her floor, watching her paint. He asked questions about her process, truly listening to her answers. He bought her expensive brushes and canvases but never pushed her to create anything specific. Fiona learned that Zachary was exactly who he appeared to be. A man who carried the weight of enormous responsibility with grace, who treated his employees with respect, who donated millions to causes he believed in without seeking recognition. She met his younger sister, Zara, who hugged Fiona immediately and whispered, "Thank God. He has been miserable for years and you make him smile like he used to." But Fiona also noticed the tension in Zachary's shoulders when he talked about board meetings, the way his jaw clenched when investors pushed him to cut corners on projects. He was good at running Zimmerman developments, but it was slowly crushing the creative soul he had buried years ago. "Come with me somewhere," Fiona said one Friday evening. They were in his suite, which had become more hers than his renovated apartment at this point. She had clothes in the closet and her art supplies scattered across the dining table. "Where?" Zachary looked up from his laptop, circles under his eyes from another late night reviewing contracts. "It is a surprise, but you need to trust me and clear your entire weekend." He closed the laptop immediately. "Done. Where are we going?" 6 hours later, they were standing on a beach 200 miles from the city. Fiona had found a small cottage to rent, right on the edge of the ocean. The moon reflected off the water in silver ribbons, and the sound of waves was the only noise for miles. "When did you plan this?" Zachary asked, pulling her close as they stood on the sand. 2 weeks ago. You have been running yourself into the ground, and I thought you needed to remember what it feels like to breathe." She turned in his arms, "And I wanted to show you something." She led him back to the cottage, where she had set up a small workspace before they arrived. Sketches and drawings covered every surface, architectural plans that she had been secretly working on for weeks. "What is this?" Zachary picked up one of the drawings, his eyes widening as he studied it. "It is a community center," Fiona explained nervously. "For underprivileged kids. Art studios, music rooms, safe spaces for them to create and dream. I designed it, but I don't know anything about making buildings actually work. I thought maybe you could help me figure out if this is even possible." Zachary was silent for so long that Fiona started to worry she had overstepped. Then he looked at her with such raw emotion that her breath caught. "This is brilliant," he said, his voice rough. "Fiona, this is everything I have wanted to create but never had the courage to try. You designed this." "I thought about what you said that first night, about making spaces where people could feel something. And I thought about all the kids like me who needed art but could not afford it. So I tried to design a building that was functional but also beautiful. That invited people in instead of intimidating them." Zachary set down the sketch and crossed to her, cupping her face in his hands. "I love you," he said, and it was the first time either of them had spoken those words. "I am completely, desperately in love with you. And I want to build this with you. Not just this building, but a life, a future where we both get to create the things that matter." "I love you too," Fiona whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I have loved you since that first night, and I fall more in love with you every single day." He kissed her then, soft and deep and full of promise. Later, they made love with the sound of the ocean as their soundtrack, and Fiona knew with absolute certainty that this was her forever. The weekend flew by in a blur of sketching, planning, and dreaming. Zachary took Fiona's designs and added his architectural expertise, showing her how to make the spaces work structurally while maintaining her artistic vision. They barely slept, too excited about what they were creating together. "I want to pitch this to my board," Zachary said Sunday night as they drove back to the city. "Zimmerman Developments has the resources to make this happen. We could break ground in 6 months." "They will never go for it," Fiona said, though hope bloomed in her chest. "There is no profit in a community center. Then I will fund it myself. I have my own money separate from the company, and I think I can convince them that this is good publicity." He glanced at her, his hand finding hers. "But I want to do more than this. I want to start a division of the company focused on projects that matter. Buildings that serve communities, not just generate revenue. It will be a harder sell, but I think I can make it work if I have the right partner." "Zachary, I'm not an architect. I don't have any formal training in this." "You have vision and heart, which is more valuable than any degree. We will hire the technical experts we need, but I want you leading the creative direction. Say yes, Fiona, build this life with me." "Yes," she said, because how could she say anything else? The board meeting 2 weeks later was intense. Fiona sat beside Zachary in a conference room that felt designed to intimidate, facing 12 stone-faced executives who clearly thought this entire idea was a waste of time. "With all due respect, Mr. Zimmerman," one of the older board members said, "this project does not align with our core business strategy. We build luxury developments and commercial properties. Community centers for at-risk youth is not our brand." "Then maybe we need to expand our brand," Zachary said calmly. "Zimmerman Developments was built on the principle that good construction improves lives. My grandfather started this company building affordable housing after the war. We have lost sight of that mission in our pursuit of profit." "Your grandfather also believed in making money," another board member interjected. "And we will," Zachary countered. "But we can do both. This community center will generate incredible goodwill. It will open doors to municipal contracts and partnerships. More importantly, it is the right thing to do." He looked around the table, his presence commanding. "I am not asking for permission. I am informing you that this is happening with company resources or without them. The question is whether you want to be part of something that matters." The room was silent for a long moment. Finally, the CEO of their investment partner spoke. "I have watched you run this company for 5 years, Zachary. You have never put a foot wrong. If you believe in this, then I am willing to trust your judgment. But Miss Anderson needs to prove she can deliver. We want to see a complete proposal, budget, and timeline in 30 days. Fiona felt Zachary's hand squeeze hers under the table. "You will have it in 20, she said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. They worked like possessed souls for the next 3 weeks. Zachary pulled in his best architects and engineers, while Fiona refined her designs and developed a vision for programs the center would offer. They hired an art therapist consultant and met with community leaders in the neighborhood where they planned to build. Fiona barely saw her own apartment. She was living in Zachary's suite full-time now, and they had fallen into a rhythm that felt like they had been together for years instead of months. She would wake up at 5 when he did, and they would have coffee together before he headed to his early meetings. She would work on the community center designs all day, sometimes meeting him for lunch, and then they would spend evenings reviewing progress and planning next steps. "You know I am never letting you go, right?" Zachary said one night. They were sprawled on the floor surrounded by blueprints and material samples, and Fiona was pretty sure she had paint in her hair. "I am counting on it," she replied, looking up from the color palette she was developing. "I'm serious, Fiona." He set aside the structural report he had been reading and moved to kneel beside her. "I know we have only been together for a few months, but I want everything with you. Marriage, kids, growing old together, the whole ridiculous fairy tale." "That does not sound ridiculous," Fiona said softly. "That sounds perfect." "Yeah." His smile was brilliant. "Because I bought this 2 weeks ago, and I have been terrified I was moving too fast." He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket, opening it to reveal a stunning ring with a sapphire the color of his eyes surrounded by diamonds. Fiona's hands flew to her mouth. Zachary, I know the conventional wisdom is to wait, to date for years and make sure, but I have never been more sure of anything in my life. You are my best friend, my creative partner, the person who makes me want to be better. Marry me, Fiona. Not today, not tomorrow, but soon. Say you will spend forever with me. Yes, she said, launching herself at him hard enough that they both fell backward. Yes, absolutely yes, I want all of it with you. He slid the ring onto her finger and it fit perfectly. I asked your mom for her blessing, Zachary admitted. I flew out to see her last weekend when you thought I was at that construction site in Philadelphia. You met my mother. Fiona was torn between laughing and crying. She loves me. I promised her we would have the wedding in her garden and name our first daughter after her. He kissed her nose. Was that too presumptuous? My mom's name is Francis. That is a terrible baby name. Then we will use it as a middle name. I am flexible. They made love right there on the floor, surrounded by their shared dreams and the future they were building together. Later, tangled together with blueprints as their blanket, Fiona thought about how much her life had changed in just a few months. She had gone from lost and afraid to engage to a man she loved more than she thought possible, creating art that mattered, building something real. The board approved their proposal with only minor changes. Construction on the community center began in early spring, and Fiona was on site almost every day, watching her vision take physical form. Zachary split his time between this project and his other responsibilities, but she could see the change in him. He was lighter now, excited about his work instead of burdened by it. They got married 6 months after they met, in her mother's garden just as Zachary had promised. It was a small ceremony, just close friends and family, and when Fiona walked down the makeshift aisle to meet Zachary under a flower-covered arch, she knew she was exactly where she was meant to be. I used to think I was broken, she said during her vows, her voice steady despite the happy tears streaming down her face. That I was not capable of the kind of passion and emotion that makes art worth viewing and life worth living, but you showed me I was not broken. I just had not met the person who made me feel safe enough to be vulnerable. You are my inspiration, my home, my everything. Zachary's own voice was rough with emotion when he spoke. That night we met, I was at the lowest point of my life. I felt trapped in a future I had not chosen, convinced that duty mattered more than dreams. Then you walked into that bar, soaking wet and heartbroken and so beautiful it hurt to look at you. You reminded me what it means to create instead of just produce, to feel instead of just function. You saved me, Fiona, and I promise to spend every day of the rest of my life making sure you never doubt your worth or your talent again. The community center opened a year after they met, almost to the day. The building was everything Fiona had imagined and more, with soaring windows that let in natural light and spaces designed to inspire creativity. They offered free art classes, music lessons, dance instruction, and tutoring to any kid who walked through the doors. At the opening ceremony, Fiona stood beside Zachary, watching hundreds of people tour the space. A little girl, maybe 8 years old, approached them shyly. Are you the people who built this? She asked. We are, Fiona said, kneeling down to the child's level. Do you like it? It is the most beautiful place I have ever seen, the girl said seriously. My mom says I can take painting classes here. I have never painted before, but I think I want to be an artist when I grow up. Fiona felt tears sting her eyes. She looked up at Zachary and saw the same emotion reflected in his face. Then that is exactly what you should do, Fiona told the girl, and we will be here to help you however we can. The project was such a success that Zachary's board approved funding for 5 more community centers across the city over the next 3 years. Fiona became the creative director of Zimmerman Development's new Community Impact Division, a role that let her combine art and social good in ways she had never imagined possible. 2 years after their wedding, Fiona woke up feeling sick for the 3rd morning in a row. Zachary hovered nervously while she took the pregnancy test, and when the positive result appeared, he picked her up and spun her around, both of them laughing and crying at the same time. "We are having a baby," he said in wonder, his hands gentle on her still flat stomach. "You are going to be the most amazing mother. You are going to be pretty great too," Fiona said, pulling him down for a kiss. "Though we still need to discuss baby names." Their daughter was born on a sunny morning in October, with Zachary holding Fiona's hand through every contraction and crying when the baby was placed in his arms. They named her Hope Frances, because she represented everything good that had come from taking risks and believing in love. Fiona went back to work 3 months later, but on her own terms. She and Zachary had renovated a warehouse space into a combination office and art studio where she could create while Hope napped nearby. Zachary had slowly shifted more of his responsibilities to trusted deputies, freeing up time to pursue his own architectural designs. His first solo project, a sustainable housing development for lower-income families, won multiple awards and proved that profit and purpose could coexist. 5 years after that rainy day when Fiona had walked into the Meridian Hotel, she stood in her studio, working on a painting for the 10th community center they were opening. Hope was at her own small easel nearby, happily creating abstract splotches of color, while Zachary reviewed architectural plans at his desk in the corner. "Do you ever think about that first night?" Zachary asked, looking up from his work. "How everything changed in a matter of hours." Fiona set down her brush and crossed to him, wrapping her arms around his shoulders from behind. "Every single day, I think about how I almost did not go into that hotel, how I almost said no when you invited me upstairs, how many tiny decisions led to this life." "I knew that night," Zachary said, pulling her around to sit in his lap. "I knew you were going to change everything. I was terrified and exhilarated and more alive than I had felt in years." "Me too," Fiona admitted. "I kept telling myself it was just one night, that it could not possibly mean anything. But my heart knew better." "Mama, look," Hope called out, proudly holding up her painting. It was mostly purple and green swirls, but she had clearly put her whole heart into it. "It is beautiful, baby," Fiona said, and meant it. "What is it?" "It is love," Hope said matter-of-factly. "Love is all the colors mixed together." Fiona and Zachary looked at each other and smiled. Their daughter had inherited both of their creative souls and somehow understood at 5 what had taken them years to learn: that love was not about perfection or planning. It was about being brave enough to feel everything, to take risks, to believe that one night could change your entire life. Later that evening, after Hope was asleep and they were curled up together on the couch, Zachary pulled Fiona close. "I have been thinking about something," he said. "What if we started a foundation? Something that funds artists who want to create social impact projects but do not have the resources. We could provide grants, mentorship, studio space. Help other people find what we found together." "That is perfect," Fiona said, excitement already building. "We could call it the Hope Foundation in honor of what art and love brought into our lives." "The Hope Foundation," Zachary repeated, testing out the name. "I love it. Let's do it. Let's build something else beautiful together." And they did. Over the next decade, the Hope Foundation helped hundreds of artists create projects that transformed communities. Fiona and Zachary continued to design and build spaces that mattered, spaces that elevated the human spirit instead of just filling skylines. They had 2 more children, a son named Oliver and another daughter named Lily, both of whom inherited their parents' creative passions. But through all of it, through the successes and the challenges and the beautiful chaos of building a life together, Fiona never forgot that rainy afternoon when her world fell apart. Because sometimes, she learned, things have to break before they can be rebuilt into something stronger and more beautiful than you ever imagined possible. On their 15th wedding anniversary, Zachary took Fiona back to the Meridian Hotel. He had reserved the same suite where they had spent that first night together, And when they stepped out onto the balcony, the city spread before them just as it had all those years ago. "You have any regrets?" Fiona asked, leaning back against his chest as his arms wrapped around her waist. "Not a single one," Zachary said firmly. "Every choice I made led me to you, and you are the best thing that ever happened to me. You and our babies and this life we built. It is better than anything I could have dreamed." "I love you," Fiona said, turning in his arms to face him. "I love you exactly as much as I did that first night, which is to say completely and forever." "Forever," Zachary agreed, and kissed her as the city lights sparkled around them like stars. "That one night gave us forever, and I would not change a single moment. Neither would Fiona." That unexpected night with a billionaire stranger had become the foundation of everything beautiful in her life. It had taught her that sometimes the best things happen when you stop playing it safe, when you let yourself feel deeply and love completely and trust that the universe has better plans than anything you could orchestrate yourself. As they stood together on that balcony, 15 years of love and laughter and shared dreams behind them and countless more years stretching ahead, Fiona sent a silent thank you to her younger self for being brave enough to accept that glass of wine, to take a chance on a stranger with kind eyes, to believe that one night could change everything. Because it had. One night had led to forever, exactly as it was always meant to do.